everyone. My name is Dan Armstrong, and this is John Parkinson. And this YouTube Live segment is about a new feature we have for our accountability report at Covenant Eyes, which will greatly improve your experience both as a user and as an accountability partner. So we want to talk about that today. John Parkinson is one of the designers here at Covenant Eyes. He did a lot of these things that we're calling incidents. Now, when we talk about incidents, John, before we get to the what of it, let's get to the why of it. Why is this something that's being introduced to the accountability report, and how will that improve things?
Sure. So Covenant and I started doing accountability like in 2002, and we've been doing it for a long time. And along the way, we've learned a whole bunch of interesting things. So if you are a current user of Covenant Eyes, you're familiar with the modules and the way that we break down the segments in the report to help people understand where the content that we're displaying came from, what the users were doing at the time, and sort of to give them a picture of their overall internet history and their activity and their patterns for the purposes of conversation. But what we found out is that frequently we had users who wanted more. They wanted to understand some of the context, what was going on. They say, okay, I get it that there was this entry here and it was bad, and thank you for telling me that, but can you tell me what happened beforehand or how they ended up there? And so it was in response to these questions and to the feedback from our users that we set up to design what eventually became the new incident module.
I know that was the case for me with my accountability partner. They would hit reply and say, okay, it looks like you're fine, you're fine, you're fine. Then all of a sudden, there's highly mature content that was scored that way, and they would ask me, what happened here? Where this seems like that would almost answer that question before you even got to that, where here were the incident, they're not the incidents, because the incident is the highly mature content, but here is the circumstances, here are the sites that were gone to just prior to and just before that, and it could develop a pattern or a behavior of what that person was looking for.
Yeah, absolutely. We at Covenant Eyes define an incident as a pattern of behavior that includes highly mature activity. So Covenant Eyes defines like pornography and certain other things as highly mature, and these are things that we take very seriously. But we realize that nobody generally just opens up their computer and magically encounters pornography, that there's a series of steps that happen to get them there, and there's things that happen afterwards. And so when we say an incident at Covenant Eyes, what we mean is the highly mature content that happened, the stuff, the activity before it and the activity after it, which we now encapsulate into a new module, which will be on your reports, called the incident module.
Now, when we mentioned this incident module, when you look at your accountability report, it did start today, and from today on, that will be a feature. But if you don't access highly mature content, or you don't go somewhere that's rated highly mature, you will not see this. So that may be something that users would have a question of is, why don't I see my incident report and it just says 0? It won't show unless you actually have one.
Right. We really focused in for this first, and we have more report changes upcoming. We always want to continue to improve, but for this one, we really zeroed in on highly mature content because we think it is the most impactful, and universally people can agree when there's highly mature content, there's usually a problem. So the incident module will only trigger when Covenant Eyes knows that there was viewed pages that were highly mature. And that's a little bit of technical language, but it translates to saying an incident will only show up when Covenant Eyes is very certain that there was highly mature activity that was engaged with by the user.
Accountability isn't easy. If it were easy, everyone would be doing it. If it was simple, if it was something that was always enjoyable, more people would be doing it. But I think this really gets to the heart of giving the accountability partner the most information as we possibly can, so that when they're keeping someone else accountable, which again is not always an easy thing or a comfortable thing to do, it gives them at least more comfort into saying, asking a question that's usually a more difficult question to ask than normally with, how's your day been going, how's the weather? Is it something that, is really, someone could be struggling with something, and they can identify possible triggers. Like if I go to certain websites, it then gets me to think about other websites, and that is my trigger that gets me thinking like this.
Yep, and the other thing it does is it gives us an avenue to provide contextual clues that a system that's focused on content rating might otherwise miss. So we've had stories from users whose kids started searching for innocent things. They were potentially doing Google searches, and it eventually escalated into something inappropriate. And so Covenant Eyes always got the highly mature end of that story. But it was very difficult for us to say, well, why would we have rated those earlier searches? Because they were innocent and they progressed into it. So now we provide this transparency into these patterns of behavior. So you as an accountability partner can have a conversation that includes the patterns and the things leading up to it, that includes all the context without having to just jump to right? The imminent danger, but also being able to understand why it happened and where it came from.
I can see this as a big time saver too for both the accountability partner and the user, where they can jump right to this incident module that's already within the accountability report and say, here were the incidents that I may have stumbled. Here are the situations where I'm struggling with.
Yeah.
So that just opens it up for not only the person that's having the conversation with both the user and the other perspective.
Yep. Yeah, I totally agree. Maybe one of the coolest things about it is this work was kicked off purely as a response to what we're hearing from our users. So we're fairly active in engaging with our users. They call us in our customer support. We have forums where we engage with them. And what we heard people were saying were frequently, I love the data that's in the reports. I love getting access to all of this, but sometimes it takes me way too long to dig in via the summary report and what we call the detailed browsing log, which is a 15-minute by 15-minute segment that lists everything that was going on. And so people were really playing detective, and they were saying, I want to go in and I want to understand what happened. And they were putting together these stories. And at the very beginning of this incident project, when we were coming up with the term incident, we're figuring out what it meant, our goal was to take that story that our users were spending all that time investigating and deliver it to them in a way where they don't have to spend that time, and they can reinvest that time into the relationships where it really matters.
You don't have to reinvent the wheel every single time
Right, exactly.
that you're confronted with this report. This is one of many exciting improvements, upgrades that Covenant Eyes is doing this year, and we have much more to come. But we enjoy this kind of format here. We're able to talk to you live, and you're able to look at it later, more like on a tape delay. But this is exciting stuff that it's going to need to be part of, and we hope that you enjoyed this YouTube Live segment. John, thank you for all your insight and for this product, and we hope you enjoy it too. And if you have any more questions about incidents, or if there's any feedback you'd like to give us, like John said, this was directly in connection with what our users were saying about the accountability report, and we made it better. So we do love the feedback, so please continue to do that, and we hope to see you on the next video segment here. Have a good one.